This video is going to be a list of the Panini Case Hit insert cards. I thought this would be a useful list. You know, sometimes, of course, if they're serial numbered cards, you know what that card is out of. But if with a case hit, sometimes it kind of falls through the cracks that, oh, this is actually a super rare card. So this kind of the point of this one is to just share with you what those are so you can keep an eye out for them. There's some of these that I'm going to list that are even more rare than that. This is essentially meant to be a good jumping off point for you to look through some unnumbered, rare case hit insert kind of cards. Also keep in mind, just because something is more rare doesn't necessarily mean it's more valuable. Maybe that talks to the supply side of it, but it doesn't talk to the demand side of it. Some of these cards can go for a lot of money, and some cards that are just as rare and maybe just as cool looking will go for a lot less. So that's something to keep in mind. Also keep in mind, I'm not including anything in here that is a parallel, and I'm not including anything that's serial numbered, because if it has a serial number on it, then you know how rare it is specifically. So I'm not including these. These are just unnumbered, case hit, rare SSP type cards. I personally find that some of the stuff that goes under the radar a little bit is some of the coolest stuff in the hobby as far as modern cards go. I mean, everybody knows of Downtown and Kabooms, and their prices are extremely high, but there's a lot of other cool sets, Night Moves and Groovy and a few others we'll see that are actually just as rare and really cool looking, but go for a lot less. And that's just because they don't have the same kind of hype. So this video is not meant to say these are cards that you should go out and get, but it's just kind of meant to be a list that's useful for you. Let's do this. As we go through this, there's no specific order. Some of these I'll mention if it's for just one sport or another, and some of them are for multi-sports. The first couple I'll mention are, everybody knows about them. Let's talk about Kaboom. This is in multiple sets, multiple sports. Of course, everybody knows this. This has a ton of hype, just like Downtown. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these two. These are maybe the biggest ones of all. But perhaps here's another one you may not have heard of because it's soccer only. National Landmarks. This one looks a lot like Downtown. It's also a case hit in Prism Soccer. Or Groovy. I actually think this one looks really cool. I've actually been buying quite a number of these ones. And then here we are looking at the stained glass set. This is currently from Mosaic, but it's been from a number of sets over the years. This is Color Blast. Color Blast, of course, has been in a lot of different sets, and it's also one of the more popular and hyped up ones as well. But maybe you don't know about this one, the Color Wheel. And then here we are, the Prism Manga set. This is becoming a little bit hyped up more recently, but not quite to the level of like Kabooms and stuff, and the prices can still be sometimes okay, depending on the player. And here we have Donruss's Night Moves. This is one of my favorites, actually, and it kind of goes under the radar. You find this one in football and soccer. This one, it's thought that this might actually be more rare than one per case. So it's actually going to be more rare than a lot of other cards on this list, despite the fact that it has a lot less hype and a lot less price because of that. In 22 and 23 Donruss, Animation, that I believe is a case hit. In Court Kings Basketball and Prism Football, you have Aurora. In Court Kings, you have Rookies 4, which might even be more rare than one per case. In some earlier sets of Court Kings, you also had, I'm probably going to mispronounce this, Les Cinq Plus Belles. Court Kings also has Blank Slate. This is one of the ones that's more well known. Court Kings also has Dieci Miglor in previous sets. So quite a number of these from Court Kings that have been case hits in different years. On the horizon is another Downtown inspired set. I was surprised to learn that Selects in Fuego from the new sets is actually a case hit. Back in the 90s, that was actually just part of the base set. In Obsidian, you have Vetrius, which has popularity, in the earlier versions of this card. Absolute Glass. This is an awesome card. Crown Royale, you have the Pacific Marquee. In Aficionado, you have the Innovators and Power Surge and Meteor. This is not more recent. Again, keep in mind, I'm not mentioning the years. You have to look. This is just a jumping off point for your research. In Contenders, you have the License to Dominate as well as the Permit to Dominate, which I didn't before realize was a case hit. In Excalibur, you have Knights of the Round. In Prestige, you have Playmakers. In Studio, you have the sketch cards, which I personally think are some of my very favorites. Panini Grand Reserve, they have the Closing Statements, which is 1 per 7 cases. In Recon, they have the Closing Statements, and you'll see that Recon actually took a lot of the Grand Reserve inserts and put them into their lower end set. So the Closing Statements in the 21-22 release were case hits. It's like Grand Reserve had the All Systems Go, which was a case hit. Recon had those, not as a case hit, actually as a very common card, which is kind of strange. Spectra has the City Limits. Ascension has Overdrive. Essentials, Rock the Rim. Illusions Football has Hollow Heroes. Mosaic Football has Storm Chasers. Mosaic Football has Busted Die Cut. XR Football has Exploits. I believe the Mythical insert is also a case hit. In Donruss Elite, you have the 3D Next Up, which is kind of like a lenticular design, as well as the 3D Dimensions. And then a couple I just wanted to mention that actually are not part of this list because they're not Panini, but I felt was just worth mentioning is Topps Home Field Advantage. Now, the reason I wanted to mention this one is because it seems to me that this is basically Topps preparing to take over Panini and replace something like the Downtown, the National Landmark, the On the Horizon with this one. It has a very similar aesthetic and it's also just as rare. And the other one I wanted to mention here is the 2021 Skybox Metal Universe Championship Galaxy. Mostly I wanted to mention that because I think it's a cool card and I'm probably never going to make another video where I can talk about it. So that's another case hit from the metal set that I think is really cool. Anyway, that's it for this video. I hope this was useful. If I missed any, I'm sure I did. There's a lot out there. Please let me know. I think this is pretty cool that there's this many case hit inserts. I think that, you know, I love the insert chase of the 90s. And I do think there's a little bit of a resurgence in the insert game. For me and a lot of other people, kind of sick of the color parallel chasing game. So the insert game seems to be picking up some pace here and there, even though a lot of these are not necessarily new. But anyway, that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. See you in the next one. Peace.